All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us here on this Monday, November 21st, regular business meeting here at Faribault Public Schools. If you have an agenda in front of you, you will see the first item deals with our strategies. The second item is where our meeting is viewed live out there on YouTube. And the third meeting is a call to order. So with that, you can see we're a little short-handed tonight. So acting as clerk is Mr. Bellingham. So Mr. Bellingham, will you please determine if we have a quorum present?
Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum present.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'd ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Bellingham, thank you for leading us in the pledge.
You're welcome.
This brings us to item number 4, the approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with a little bit of flexibility. And I say that only because our item number 5A, this individual who will be presenting is not here yet. And so I'd like to be able to just move her down and let her get settled a little bit and then present when she gets here. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda with some flexibility.
Mr. Chair. Go ahead, Mr. Olson.
Yeah, so moved with flexibility.
We have a motion by Mr. Olson. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Everybody tonight gets a bunch of motions and seconds based on 4 people here. With that, this moves us to item number 5, recognition, awards, and presentations. We will move to what appears to be 5B as stated on your agenda. So, ladies, the school board representative, student representative report.
Hi, I'm Sophia Mentz. I'm a 12th grader at the Faribault High School.
And I'm Jillian Huberty. I'm a sophomore at Faribault High School, and we are the student representatives, and we run the Youth on Boards, District Youth Council.
So the last time we met was last Friday, 2 Fridays ago, last Friday, something like that. And we talked about 4 questions and kind of got student opinions about how we felt about those. Just keep in mind, all of these answers are coming from real students who took time to meet and share about their valuable opinions, and we were really raw and open and honest about them. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Our first question we talked about is where do you feel supported and where do you feel unsupported? Overall, we got a lot of good feedback about support in the LGBTQIA+ community. We saw a lot of representation within our high school about it. And then we did have some unsupported feelings about needing more multicultural representation and a little bit of negative feelings about body shaming and overall negative appearances from student to student.
We also heard a lot of positive feedback from AVID students that they very much felt that their AVID teachers were making personal connections with them and really talking to them. So we noticed that was a really big thing, was that these students felt like they had a bond with their teachers outside of just, here, I'm the teacher, here's your work, I'm gonna go grade it. They felt that they had a connection and they could talk about their lives. And so we really did find that one big takeaway is we can just learn from the AVID community itself.
The second prompt we kind of talked about was about teachers and relationships from teacher to students and listening. A positive that we saw is that some teachers do have conversations with students about more than just schoolwork. But we did have some, on the flip side, saying that a lot of times students felt that their grades mattered more than themselves, or that their grades were more valuable than their well-being. We talked about just the feeling of when you go into a classroom, sometimes you sit, do your work, and leave without a personal connection. Sometimes with a teacher or even with another student, you're just told to sit down, do your work, be quiet, and leave. And working towards moving away from that method and leaving time for socialization between classes and class time.
And the big thing we can take away is how do we improve student-teacher connections? And we think we can either improve more workshops and just really humanizing people, because even as a student, I don't think all students see teachers as people as well, and we all are people and we all have feelings. And so really trying to expand that idea in schools that we're all people, we're all equal, let's form a bond.
The third topic we talked about was staff and handling conflicts. This topic definitely got very deep and very personal with a bunch of students, so that was good, but overall we had not very positive feedback in the side of handling them in a proper manner. A lot of the times we feel like students get kicked out of the classroom a little bit too quickly, and instead of taking time to resort or resolve the issue, it's more of a go to the office, which then takes away time from learning and ultimately takes away time from ever getting responsibility on how to solve your actions and just like being left, which also feels abandonment in a way.
One big difference we noticed from Faribault High School students in the ALC was that the ALC students talked about how they never wanted to get sent to the office because that meant they were sent home. And they didn't want to go home because they wanted to stay at school. They didn't want to get in trouble as an excuse to get out of learning. So how do we implement that at the high school so kids aren't being naughty or trying to get kicked out of class so that they can go home, but keep them to really want to stay at the high school? And we also know that a lot of students felt as though they were being either racially targeted or targeted for past mistakes they had made, and that there was assumptions about them being made, and students just felt like that was a big concern that they had.
Another thing to keep in mind is that sometimes students feel like as if sometimes when they make mistakes and they learn and they grow and they realize that they made those mistakes, they're then just viewed as a bad person instead of a good person who made a bad choice, which is definitely something we don't want any students or anyone feeling. They talked about issues that were communicated but never resolved. Like, I felt this didn't go good and it really upset me. Okay, we'll fix that next time, and it just continuously happens. So looking at how to handle that. And a big thing that came up was punishment about removing rights. We have issues going on with the bathrooms at the high school, vandalism and a bunch of other stuff, and there have been times where they've closed all of the bathrooms closest to your classroom. So instead of going to the bathroom taking me 3 to 5 minutes and going back to class, it takes students 10 minutes to walk across the school, to wait in a line, to go to the bathroom, to then walk back. And
Yeah, so as someone who is at the high school every single day, we have had some students who make poor choices and vandalize the bathrooms. Then as a repercussion, this has been a very large issue, as you can see. Every student is now in trouble for that. And now, so say I have science class and the science hallway bathroom's closed. So now I have to go up and all the rest of the bathrooms are closed, so I had to walk down to the gym. Takes like 5 minutes to get down there, so I'm missing 10 minutes of class per se. That's a fifth of my class period. So we're noticing that we're removing rights that would never be truly like removed in real world situations, rights that just don't make sense to remove, and we're punishing all students for an act made by very few students.
Another one along with that topic is prayer. Prayer has been inconsistent without a lot of comment on why. Sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes they found out via Schoology message just a few hours before it happens. And that really is taking away a fundamental human right of a whole student population of our school. And it's really, they feel almost discriminated against when this is happening, which is a problem in and of itself, and definitely something that needs to be addressed and handled properly, and why it's either not happening or how we can make it happen at the same time in the same way in a manner that is controlled and giving the students the outlet that they deserve when it comes to their religion, I think is definitely important, and students genuinely feel hurt by that. And I think that that's a real problem and something that definitely needs to be identified. Our fourth prompt was about identity and how we feel supported and unsupported in those identities. Just a reminder for everyone, identity includes race and ethnicity, religion, and gender identity. Overall, back to the LGBTQIA+ community, they feel very supported with flags and clubs, teachers supporting. We have the GSA, which is now funded, which was a big win. So overall, I feel like that's going very well.
Yeah, we do have a lot of students who just feel that they are being even just identified and that their teachers are making recognition and truly talking to them. And we do notice this positive impact as a lot of teachers are helping students, whether they are part of certain communities or not, that a lot of students are being welcomed and being supported by teachers at school.
And then just tying back with the religion, by making prayer inconsistent, they feel almost discriminated against, which makes them feel unsafe and excluded, and really working on a proper way to handle that situation. Overall, there are definitely both good and bad. As a school, we are working to improve these, and we appreciate the bravery that it takes for them to come out and talk about these topics. We definitely are looking for ways to solve and figure out these issues, and I think the most important way to do that is by getting student voices. Right now you have 2, and soon you'll hear more about more and more, and I think just the more involved we can get every student with every issue that we have, the better it'll be, including that school is a place for students. So.
Yeah, and I'd say we're also looking at how do we connect with teachers and students, and not just from the student lens, but also looking from that teacher lens, and how do we make sure we have the best way that teachers can connect with students too, and making everyone want to come to school every day.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Mentz and Ms. Huberty. Board members, any questions or comments for the 2 young ladies? Mr. Olson.
Yeah, a couple points. We have a policy, there's no bullying. You mentioned some items there. Well, that's not allowed. It never is allowed. Second, since the high school is my adopted school, and I've talked to Joel about the bathrooms, which I thought it was told that they would open up the bathrooms. Now I'm hearing that they're closing. And that could be a violation of some codes and also the American Disabilities Act. Wonder if the superintendent could check into that?
Yeah, I can speak with Mr. Olson to find out when they're closing, how many they've closed.
Because that,
And I do know one of the boys' bathrooms is like permanently closed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, I think they're still looking for the perpetrators.
Yeah.
And we need to get it resolved for many reasons, medical reasons. You know, the students get sick for whatever reason, they need a bathroom. So I don't know what the entire board thinks, but that should not be happening. Really, that's unheard of, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Thank you, Mr. Benty, for looking into it. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Mentz or Ms. Huberty? Thank you for your report. Question for you. The board that you're on, name it again, if you would, please.
It's called the District Youth Council.
And so that's made up of Faribault High School students and Faribault ALC students, correct? And this was your 2nd or 3rd meeting?
This was our 3rd.
3rd? And has your attendance been staying pretty much level with that?
It's almost been increasing, hasn't it?
Yeah, we have gained members, and sometimes there are issues just with like homework tests and stuff, and sometimes missing school isn't just an option. So
But
sometimes
it has been consistent.
Yeah, it's been pretty consistent.
So once you're done with your meeting, at some point, do you then meet with Faribault High School leadership and Faribault ALC leadership to convey the thoughts and the message and the feedback and try to work on things, or what does that look like?
Yep, we have before, and we continue. I know you have.
Yeah, I've met with Mr. Olson a couple times about some of the stuff we've talked about. A lot of it is we spend a good chunk of time just getting comfortable with each other to get into these topics. And then once we talk about them, figuring out how we can fix them. And then from there, we do talk to the right amount of people. We've talked to Sodexo. We've talked to a lot of just district employees. We've talked to teachers. We've talked to Mr. Olson. And I think we plan on presenting for a whole staff meeting at the high school once. So we are connecting with the people who can help solve these issues.
Yeah. Good luck, thank you. I know you mentioned several things, and that's the what. And without speaking to leadership and administrators and whatever, it's hard to understand the why
Yeah.
that may be behind them, right? So, thank you, appreciate it. Board members, anything else? Okay, wonderful, thank you. Mr. Gertis, not here yet? Okay, so that will bring us to item 5, what's on our agenda as 5C, the DECA presentation. Mr. Kegler, you want to come on up?
I've got 4 kids here to do that.
Perfect, we're ready for it. If you would, just come on up here and introduce yourselves. Or are you going to stay back there? Are we able to pull it up on all 4 screens? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Joey Steinberg.
I'm going to ask you to try to use the mic because that's how we can hear online.
Hi, I'm Joey Steinberg. I'm the DECA president this year.
My name is Trenta. I'm the vice president.
My name is Clara Malika, and I'm the Communications and Hospitality Officer.
Hi, my name is JC Frank, and I'm the Social Media Marketing Officer.
So we're here today to just talk about our last year's DECA season, as well as talk about our goals and what we want to do for this year as well.
Okay, these are social media pages. We have an Instagram and Twitter, which I run, and along with my another social media marketing officer, Sophia Mentz. If you want to be updated and follow along with our success, you can go right here. So let's look at last year. We had a huge success with 26 students advanced to the state competition, 12 district champions, 40 district medalists, and 6 state finalists. Alumni include Paige Ross and Thomas Malika. They received an Outstanding Member Award, and the state finalist events included Business Solutions Project, Virtual Business Restaurant, and the Stock Market Game.
Okay, so some more of our successes from last year. Myself and Trent, I know we talked to some of you guys last year, but we placed 3rd in the world in Virtual Business Restaurant. John Cuniff and Henry Schonebaum finished top 15 in the world in the Stock Market Game. Malika and Paige Ross won a state trophy, which qualified them for ICDC, and I believe they finished in the top 87% of people there too, so they did really good as well. We received Thrive Awards in all of our chapter campaigns, and we finished 3rd out of 87 teams at the Minnesota State Personal Finance Championships.
All right, so for some goals that we have for this season of DECA, we want to keep increasing our membership and keep getting students to try like new things, keep going out for it. And we have completed our project management events benefiting the DECA program in the community. And we want to achieve Thrive Awards in our Gold Chapter campaigns, which this includes promotional, ethical leadership, membership, and community service. And we also want to have Freddie's Locker Room become a Gold Certified School-Based Enterprise. We are hoping this project receives us to get a ticket to Nationals in ICDC.
So here are our current achievements we've had so far. So from last year, we were really low on our DECA participation. So our goal was to try to get that more involved. So this year we increased to 68 members from 30 last year, which was a huge accomplishment for us. And currently myself and Joey have qualified for Virtual Business again, which is held in Orlando, Florida. We placed 1st in the state and 3rd in the nation. As well as we've completed our community service project, which we made 20 tie-dye blankets as well as 50 greeting cards, and then we donated them to the Mill City. And currently, our last weekend, we had 32 members attend the Back to Business, which we had Jillian Huberty and Preston Berger placed top 2 in their section for role play, as well as Joey receiving a medal for the exam, and myself and Joey for qualifying for virtual business.
All right. What questions do you guys have for us?
All right, board members, questions or comments? Mr. Olson?
Yeah, what's your future after leaving high school?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a junior this year, but I'm looking to double major in computer science and business administration management. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we can go down the line and
Yes,
talk
please.
about what
Uh,
we're doing.
Right now, I'm currently deciding on the University of Minnesota or St. Thomas, and I'm deciding on majoring in either accounting or management information systems, and then minoring in either entrepreneurship or business law.
I will be attending St. Catherine's University in St. Paul for volleyball, and I am hoping to go the pre-med route, as well as my brother Thomas.
I'm also a junior, so I'm not really sure what I want to do or where I want to go, but I definitely want to dive into the world of business, probably in state, but we'll see what happens.
Any other questions?
It's just all very impressive. Thank you for coming to present.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
Mr. Bellingham?
Mr. Chair, so thank you. So maybe you could explain to me, maybe more general public as well, is DECA part of your day, like third hour or fourth hour? Do you have that? And then also, how much time outside of class or outside of school time do you spend on these activities here? And does it allow you to do extracurriculars? Obviously, I'm hearing yes, so like that. But if you could just give us a general time frame and things like that, so.
Yeah, so DECA is not a part of our school day at all. It's an after-school program. I know Kegler has explored the idea of making a class specifically for DECA, which a lot of other schools do have. But currently, it's really a lot of like after-school time and stuff like that. And the time commitment, it's really up to what students want to put into it. There's some events where you can show up on the day and do a role play, which for some of you who don't know, you're basically given a situation and you put yourselves in the shoes of a business professional. Say you're like assistant manager of a company, and then you're going to present to your boss, and then you're coming up with, they're asking you to solve a solution basically, and then you're coming up with that solution and then presenting it to your boss. So there's stuff like that where people could show up on the district competition and just do that. And then there's other things where Trent and I, like virtual business, the qualifying round is a 2-week period, and this last round that we competed in, we put about 60 hours into it. So, I mean, it is really what you want to put into it, and it does allow you to do other things. Like last year, I was able to do DECA, 3 sports, and still do other things like student council, music. It really is up to you what you put into it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Once again, thank you all for coming. I just want to, anybody watching, the newspaper is here. These are 4 outstanding students in Faribault Public Schools, 4 of the many that we have, and so I think it's wonderful you're here. I do have a question for the 2 of you. You got 3rd in the world in your restaurant business.
Yes.
How did you ever foresee the supply chain issues and the lack of people just showing up? How did that work? How did you schedule around the people just no showing? Or did that not come into play?
Could you repeat that again?
Well, so you got 3rd in the world in the restaurant
Correct.
business. How did you possibly forecast the supply chain issues for all the food and the lack of help of people showing up?
Well, as you see, it is a online simulation, so we can supply as much as we want.
Okay, I didn't want. I mean, you could write a book and sell this stuff. So if your major doesn't pan out, go into the restaurant business and give some people some ideas.
Yeah.
No, thank you. We appreciate it, and wonderful job. Best of luck
Thank
this
you.
year.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I think we'd be, I don't want to neglect Mr. Kegler here. So, Mr. Kegler, thank you for your work and your leadership there. You have developed, and I think I told you this many years ago when I was on the Minnesota Board of Teaching. At MDE, they know what kind of a DECA program we have in Faribault. So, and thank you so much, and your work, et cetera, and how you influence young people, et cetera. So,
I think a round of
congratulations,
applause.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Gerdes? Miss Ella Bettner's here?
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to bring her up. The next presentation is Miss Ella Bettner with No Tummies Left Behind, which is a donation for student lunch accounts. So if you're redoing your agenda, this will now be item 5C. Welcome.
So, thank you guys for allowing the flexibility tonight. I want to introduce Ella Bettner. Ella Bettner and her mom, Nicole, and her dad, Fred. So, if we can get the picture put up on the screen. So, this is a picture that was taken almost a year ago when it was just Kim, who works with me in the accounting department, and myself and about 2 other people were in the school building. It was the day before we were off for New Year's. And Nicole and Ella came in and offered up a check. I don't know if you can really see that, but it was somewhere in the amount of $760 some odd, right? And it was just the most touching thing ever. And Kim was around here, but she had to kind of take off. But I wanted to show that picture because that's where we first met Ella and her mom and the work that Ella was doing around this program. So I'm going to give the mic over to them, or to Ella, and let her speak. This is her show, not mine. And then afterward, she wants to present the board, and we want to take a few pictures.
My name is Ella Bettner, and I'm a 6th grade student at Medford Elementary School and a resident of Faribault. I am also a founder and owner of the charity No Tummies Left Behind. I started No Tummies Left Behind last year after I learned about food insecurity in schools and decided I wanted to help. To raise money, I make and sell bracelets at craft shows and local farmers markets. Last year, I donated over $600 to Faribault schools, and I was able to pay off all of their negative lunch balances. I also donated over $800 to my school and came within $500 of paying off their balances. Knowing I had more work to do this year, I decided to reach out to a local business to see if they would partner with me. I've established many relationships with local business where they display my bracelets to sell, host fundraising events, or both. I've even bussed tables at the depot and Pizza Ranch. Tonight I am here to make the next No Tummies Left Behind donation to the Faribault Public School District of $1,303, which we estimate would help 260 elementary students or 280 middle school and high school students eat for a day. We hope to touch as many students as possible who do not have financial means to pay off their balances, especially those on free or reduced lunch programs or who are going through financial difficulties. With this donation, we hope to lessen the stigma around not being able to afford lunch at school and increase awareness around food insecurities at school. I am grateful at 11 years of age that I can make this contribution and I welcome continued support from local communities.
Wonderful, thank you. Do you have more, Mom or Dad? Do you want to talk at all?
No, I think she said it all.
Okay. Board members, questions or comments for this young lady? Mr. Olson?
Quick, yeah, there is a future leader of this community sitting right there ahead of us. I wanted to say that.
Thank you so much for that effort. And the results that you had are amazing. And thank you for sharing that with Faribault Public Schools.
Yes, thank you. And for those of you that don't believe in the youth in our community, we have them. Positive. Thank you. And thank you, Mom and Dad, for your parenting and leadership here. So,
Ella, I don't think there's a person in here that either didn't have a tear in their eye or goosebumps listening to your story. So thank you very much, and we greatly appreciate it. I do have a question for you. If somebody wanted to make a contribution to your organization, No Tummies Left Behind, how would one go about doing that?
Oh, gotcha. I didn't get the question. Checks, cash, Venmo, PayPal. Yeah, Facebook. Well, that's on Facebook. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So it sounds like there's several ways. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Rysted, and between yourself and hopefully the local Daily News will have some form of an article on this, and hopefully in that article, the ways that people can contribute will be in there, and so we thank you. With that said, you want to do a picture, right? So if all of us board members can stand up here?
Yes, Chad, I want to just thank publicly again Ella and her parents for coming. You had mentioned tears in your eye, and a year ago when Kim and I met Ella and her mom for the first time, that's exactly what it did to both of us. So thank you from Faribault Public Schools. So. So if we could all just get a picture here quick, and Ella has the check to present to the school board tonight. Okay, thank you again. This brings us to
Item 5D, building a strong school community at Roosevelt Elementary. Mr. Sean Peck and staff. So you want to introduce yourself, and do you have anybody else coming?
This is it.
No? Okay, I'm just reading off of what's on the agenda, so thank you.
You got it. Well, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Thank you to the board for allowing us this time. My name is Sean Peck. I am the principal at Roosevelt Elementary.
And I'm Kim Berry, the school social worker.
And we're here today. We presented last year on some of our academic gains. Our literacy goal is near and dear to our hearts, and we presented some of our progress on that. And so we wanted to check in with the board and the community around another one of our goals, which is creating a world-class climate and culture at our school and a very strong school community, a sense of belonging for every single person that enters into our school. So that's what we're here to talk to you about today.
We feel really strongly that if our kids feel connected and have a sense of belonging, that they are going to perform better. We want them to feel like they can trust their teachers, and they don't have to worry about fitting in, because we are creating a climate in the classroom and in the building where every single kid, we want to feel like they belong. So we feel really confident that every day when the kids walk in the door, that they are loved and they feel connected.
And this is really based on how the brain works. We're very invested in, obviously, teaching and learning, and we want kids to be able to learn. That ultimately, as a school, is our number one goal. And the way that the brain works is that when you feel threatened, or the self-preservation part of your brain sort of takes over, like right now, I don't exactly feel super comfortable. I'm a little nervous. My palms are a little sweaty. My heart's beating a little bit faster. This is not an environment that I'm typically at, right? Presenting at this table. So it would be very challenging right now to teach me math, because my brain is more invested in other things. So what we want to do is to disarm every single child that comes through our building, make sure that they know that they are absolutely safe, they're absolutely welcome, they absolutely belong, so that self-preservation or the threat detection part of their brain sort of shuts off and allows the prefrontal cortex to do their learning. If we can keep children regulated and using the frontal part of their brain, we can teach them anything. But if they feel like they don't belong, or they don't fit in, or they are treated as an other for any particular reason, it becomes really hard for them to achieve academically. So this stuff is absolutely tied to our goals around math and reading and all the other achievement goals that we have. It's not just fluffy feel-good stuff. It is at the core of what we do as far as achievement academically. And why does it matter? The research really shows that students who feel that they belong have a more positive attitude about school, engage more fully in learning, have fewer behavior problems, are more open to critical feedback. Essentially, every single goal that we have as a district is addressed by a strong sense of belonging and a strong sense of community. We heard it a little bit from the student reps at the high school, how important that is to them. Well, it starts at a much younger age in early childhood and elementary school. If you feel good, typically you do good. So how do we do that?
So I just want to add to what Sean is talking about. This also runs parallel to using a trauma-informed lens, as well as supporting our students' mental health and wellness. So one of the opportunities we have to start the year off on a good note and be able to connect with our families and students is being able to open our doors and allow them to feel welcomed, meet their teachers, and just feel connected. As soon as you walk in the doors, it's just a positive experience for everybody that walks through the doors. And it's not only to connect with the teachers, but it's also to connect with the support staff in our building.
Now, once we get into the day, we're very strategic about how we even let kids enter into our school. We have people positioned at the exterior doors so that the exact moment that children walk into our building, they're being greeted. So the picture to the right is actually a picture of Mrs. Berry You can see Victor Mendoza, one of our faces. They stand right at the front doors, and the moment that they walk in, they're being greeted. It could be a hug, it could be a high five. Of course, it's a good morning. And before that child, every child, gets to their classroom, our goal is for them to have 3 positive interactions with an adult before they make it to their classroom. 1 at the door, 1 outside of their pod, and 1 at the pod door. And I want to show you a video of just what this looks like at our school on any given day. So this is at the top of the stairs as some 2nd and 3rd graders walk in.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, buddy.
So right from the first moment that they walk into school, they are sent a very, very clear message that we are overjoyed to see them, that they are absolutely welcome in the space, and that that school belongs to them, that they are at home at the school.
Can I just add? So you can see just them coming to the stairs, there's 3 people greeting them. But there is about 10 people as they're walking through the building saying good morning. And when they leave, it's the same exact thing. And we tell them that we miss them and we can't wait to see them tomorrow.
I also wanted to mention our first 30 days curriculum, which is something that every single classroom embodies and puts into practice. So our first 30 days curriculum really helps us build up predictable routines and structures around what it means to be a good learner, a good listener, a good leader, and all those different values that we try to lift up. So we're extremely intentional around the first 30 days of school. We go a little bit slower at the start so that we can go faster later, and that community building in every single classroom is really at the forefront. So we're doing it on a school-wide level, but when we hone into the individual classrooms, that's happening at that classroom level too.
Another opportunity for us to connect with our students is every classroom does a morning meeting, and this is not only to connect with the teacher, but also every single student in that classroom, so they feel like they are developing relationships with each other. So a morning meeting starts out with a greeting, and each student greets each other and the teacher, and then there's an activity that helps them feel connected, and it also builds trust in their classroom, so they can feel good about making mistakes and be able to support each other in that. Another building-wide curriculum that we do is Second Step, and that is teaching social-emotional learning. If kids are able to learn how to solve their problems and develop those skills, they need to not only be a learner, but be a responsible person and be able to resolve conflicts. We're able to do that through Second Step. And so they start that at kindergarten all the way to 5th grade.
Another one of our favorite initiatives is our CARE Student of the Month breakfast. So each child oftentimes will get a CARE slip if they show a very positive behavior that leads to a sense of belonging in our school. At the end of each month, each classroom chooses a student that they feel has done the best job of that, and we hold a monthly breakfast. We invite their families in. We give prizes. The Booster Club has been kind enough to donate some T-shirts and things like that to make it a very special experience for our kids. And this is a great opportunity to take that school community outside of the classroom and spread it to the larger community, which includes parents and family members and neighbors and friends. The kids are so excited to win this award, and they get to invite all their special people to this event. And those mornings are very, very special at our school.
Another thing that we developed at our school is Community Day, and we started that through Unity Day, and that.
I forgot to advance it. It was my
and that helps the whole school come together. So we have activities that include older children and younger children, so they can help each other and be responsible for those kids, and they can work together. And it really brings out the leadership in those older kids to be able to take some pride in hanging out with the little kids and feel really good about doing all those activities that we set up for them.
One of the best things we can do to build a sense of belonging and community is to have kids make connections with each other. And so one of the strategies that we try is our featured Falcon videos. Uh-oh. Did I lose it? Hopefully we're coming.
Hi, my name is Jaden Jesus Espinoza in 5th grade in Miss Moon's class.
Will you all please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with Jaden?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may all be seated. Jaden, what has been an inspiration in your life?
George Springer played for the Astros. Thank you for reminding me. He inspired me to not be afraid to talk because I have a stuttering problem and I might be different than all of you people.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Also, what do you love here about at Roosevelt, Jaden?
I love Roosevelt because we have the best principal ever, Mr. Peck. And I love the teachers, like Miss Moon. She's a really cool teacher. I hope you get her in 5th grade. And Miss Johnson in 4th grade. Whoever has Miss Johnson, she's a really fun and nice teacher.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Also, what is a special talent that you have or something that you are good at?
I like jumping off high places. And I like to jump off like the playgrounds, but do not do it at school. And you have to be brave enough to get hurt because I know some kids might say, I want to do the same thing too. But just in case, I'm warning you, you could get hurt.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Do you want to tell everyone goodbye?
Bye.
Thanks, Jaden. So we do one of these videos
Hi,
every
my
Friday,
name
and kids
is
are very
Jaden.
excited to sign up to do them. And when you're doing it, it's really neat because this video will be playing in the classroom, and the kids they use this signal for connection, right? And so when Jaden says, I love to jump off high places, we'll see kids say, me too, me too. And it just builds this great sense of connectivity in our school. There we go.
Another way we help not just our staff and students feel connected, we also want our families to feel connected, and we embrace our PTO, and they do a lot for us and have brought a lot to our school with family nights. We do a family game night, and most recently we did a family movie night, and we have a tremendous amount of families show up to those events. So it's really neat to see and be able to meet all the families and their grandparents and things like that.
So we really just wanted to give you a few examples of the things that we do to really bring this priority to life. We do a lot of things, whether it's the breakfast or the announcements or whatever it might be, and that really helps us meet this goal of making sure that people feel like they belong. We were fortunate enough to give a survey to parents, staff, and students recently, and we got some direct feedback on how we're doing. 95% of parents agreed or strongly agreed with the comment, my children feel that they belong. So we felt like we were trending in a very positive direction. The parents themselves, 96% said, I feel welcome at my child's school. Again, very positive. You can see for yourself, but whether it was students, parents, or staff, there is a strong agreement that the people who go there each day or the people that are connected to our school community do feel like they belong for the most part. We certainly still have work to do, obviously, and we're not about to call victory quite yet, but we do feel very encouraged that some of these initiatives that we're trying are working. And it does lead to increased learning. Just like we talked about earlier, if you put students in the right frame of mind to learn, they will learn. And some of our achievement data is showing some significant results, whether we're talking about reading or math. some pretty significant jumps from this fall when compared to last fall that we're very, very proud of, and we're optimistic that those jumps will continue in the future. Thanks for giving us a little bit of time. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Board members, questions or comments?
It's great to see that you've got 95, 96% of the parents feeling that their child and themselves are welcomed at the school. Good job.
Thank you. We're very proud of that. Thank you.
Yeah, great job, great presentation. I think anything in the 90s is really, really great. To the bottom part of that, in terms of the proficiency jumps and things of that nature, is there anything you feel we can do as a board to help support how we make those jumps even bigger and faster? I mean, clearly coming out of COVID, right? I mean, you saw the state averages, the national averages. I think all 50 states saw decreases in all this stuff. And so, we've gotten ESSER funds, which for those of you that don't know what ESSER is, basically federal dollars to one-time infusions into districts, and they can kind of spend them within certain parameters. But is there anything that we can do as a board, if you will, district overall, that can help those numbers in your mind without getting into the weeds, if you will, kind of high level?
I think just providing some really strong support to the teachers and the adults that provide care to the students every single day. If they're feeling good, I think that reflects onto the students. So just being able to support students and staff, teachers and staff, and making them feel good so the kids can feel good.
Yeah, we do have talented people in all of our schools, as you know. We have willing learners in all of our schools. We have parents that care deeply about the education of their child, and so it's a bit of a balance between understanding that we have large, significant growth and improvement that needs to occur, but also not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because there are some very, very positive things happening, some people that are extremely talented that are on the right track, I feel like, and so allowing a little bit of grace to continue that work to continue on where we think it will go. But we also are realistic and understand that the status quo is unacceptable and we need to improve in many areas. So I think helping us find that right balance of what to stick with and what to improve upon.
Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Board members, any other questions or thoughts? All right.
Thank you.
Hearing none, thank you very much. Thank you. This brings us to item 5E, Technology Department, Mr. Casey Rutherford.
Hello, everyone. I'm back. It's been a while since I've been in front of you, and so I'm looking forward to giving you kind of an update of what we've been doing for the last few months, some projects, some things we're working on, and some exciting things to share, too, about what kids are doing in classrooms and how we in the technology department are supporting that. So the biggest thing that I wanted to bring to you right away was last year, in the spring, we came to you 1 month and said, hey, we'd like to make this really big purchase of iPads this spring. We'd like to use some extra funds that we got in the fall to be able to do that. You said, sure, that sounds great. The next month we came and we said, just kidding. We'd really like to wait to make that purchase. And the reason was we found out that there was a possibility of those iPads getting funded federally. That if we waited until fiscal year 23 started, that would make them eligible for this third round of what's called ECF funding. That's Emergency Connectivity Fund. It's a fund set up specifically to purchase devices that are in kids' hands. So this is perfect for our iPad scenario. And that money landed very, very recently. We did, in fact, get approved, and we got $325,752 to pay for every single high school iPad that ended up in a student's hand. So that was to kind of the credit of this entire team. Scott and I working together to go, wait a minute, hold on. If we switch this and you folks trusting us that actually was going to pan out, getting all that paperwork done, and we ended up with that pretty significant amount of funding. So that's really just a huge win that we had in the technology department here this fall. That's thing number one. Then projects. So these are some of the projects that we're looking at. I wanted to remind you first what we started off doing with elementary schools. The above picture is the before picture, and the below is the after. That's some cleanup that we've been doing. We started out that with some of the ESSER funds. And the idea is, let's make sure that classrooms are clean, that they are welcoming for kids, that they're simple, and that they actually function for teachers, right? And so part of that process is just cleaning up this mess. That also replaces all the cables, makes them really good to go for the next 10 to 15 years. And so we're going to continue that work, and we're starting to look at secondary now. We've done all of the elementary buildings, all 3 elementary buildings, and we're now moving on to secondary. So these are a few pictures of what we're looking at the middle school right now. This is a science classroom where we ended up, one of their lab stations is kind of taken up by these cables that are all over the place. Then we've got a couple pictures here of just different classrooms and how teachers have tried to deal with kind of this mess. And so we're looking now at just using my standard budget, money that I set aside this year to try to continue this project. And we're just going to chip away at it as much as we can. So we're going to just keep moving forward, continue to replace as need be. It is becoming more urgent. I've had now, I think, 4 classrooms where I've had to go in and replace the cabling because it stopped functioning. And so as it gets older, that becomes more and more common. So we're going to make sure that we stay as proactive as we can and get that work done. So that's a big project that we're working on right now. Then we're continuing our Wi-Fi update. So again, a project that you approved. This was actually 2 fiscal years ago. Over the summer, no, that's not true. It was last fiscal year. Over the summer at Roosevelt, we ended up replacing all of the access points. That's these little, Scott likes to call them pucks, that sit in the ceiling here. And those are what let any of us in this room connect to the internet. It all goes through that device and then onto our network and then out to the internet from there. So we started replacing at Roosevelt, and that was because we knew that we needed a plan where we could kind of slowly over time replace these access points in all of our buildings, and that makes it the most fiscally responsible that we can possibly do it. So rather than saying, hey, we need $1 million to replace everything all at one time, we can kind of take it in chunks and go as we can. So the plan is this summer to do the high school, and we're waiting for the second building, kind of looking at that balance between the AV project and this project. And so looking to see, well, maybe we'll do the middle school if we're getting enough done at with the AV project with replacing cables. But if we're spending a little bit more than we think on that, then we could do one of the other elementaries instead and then do the middle school the next year. So then I've kind of worked out a plan for the next 3 summers to get all of that replacement done. The really good news with that is we actually only pay 20% of all of those amounts, and that's because of a federal program called E-rate. E-rate is actually a very similar program to the one that funded our iPads. It's been going on for years now, actually, and it's a program that gives priority to school districts who have high free and reduced lunch numbers, and gives a portion of anything that connects to the internet. So anything that we use to connect to the internet, access points, we have a bunch of switches in the back room, any kind of cabling that we're required to put in for that, all of that we can get reimbursed 80%, so that we're only paying 20%. The side note to that is there are 2 ways to do that. One is to say, okay, we'll pay 20%, you pay 80%, and then we're on the government's timeline. So then we sit back and we wait, and we wait until they pay the vendor, basically. Way number 2 is that we pay it all ahead of time, and then it's on our timeline. We can define what that looks like, and then when the project is done, we get reimbursed. So working through the finances with our finance team, we've kind of opted, generally speaking, to go with that second method where we pay up front and then we get the money back, and we just plan for that. We make sure that we know how much, based on how much we spend, how much we're going to get back, and that way we can kind of continue rolling that forward to continue paying for the project. That lets us be on our own timeline. It lets us define, like, we have 3 months during the summer. That's really the only good time to get this kind of work done, and so we can kind of set what that looks like. So that's a big project that we have coming up for the next few years now. Now, just last meeting, we brought you a proposal to go for a request for information for cybersecurity insurance. And Scott did a really nice job, despite the fact that I couldn't be here, of kind of talking through the purpose of that. And, long story short, cybersecurity insurance is just changing wildly. And this is talked about, a discussion in all of the circles that I run in. And the problem there is we need actual guidance to be able to do that. And so what we were really looking for is a broker who's going to go out and kind of look for insurance for us, but can say, after going through this assessment, we see that you don't have this in place. It's really great that you have this, but if in the next 2 months you could probably easily add this, this, and this, and that would really improve your posture for insurance. So we went out for a request to say who's out there that does that kind of thing. We ended up with 4 responses to the RFI. One of which was not actually an insurance broker, it was just a cybersecurity company, and so we kind of tossed that out right away. And then there was one that had no local presence and no school presence at all, and so we ended up not asking them for a quote as well. So we ended up with 2 brokers, one of whom was kind of a recommendation based off of our current broker. So our current broker said, this is not something that we're able to do. This. We're not cybersecurity experts, just like we aren't necessarily experts there. But they were able to say, I work with this other company that's a larger entity, and kind of passed off the possibility of working with them. So we're currently working on getting quotes from them. We've already made some improvements. You all know, I think everybody in this room knows, that we've instituted multi-factor authentication on all of our accounts. And that's a security thing that is really important these days because it prevents somebody unauthorized from getting into your account. We've added that on some of our really secure means of getting into the network. And so we have vendors who will come into our network with a virtual private network, which is a technical thing that doesn't really matter. But they come in and they're able to work on the pieces in our network, and we've added multi-factor authentication to those systems to make sure that they're more secure as well. That's just one example. We've a few other things that we've implemented just in the last month or so to try to make sure that we're looking the best we can for this insurance. So it's been a really positive process. We're hoping to bring back to a final quote for approval at the next board meeting. This is something that is pretty near and dear to my heart, and I'm just really proud of. We instituted a new help desk system this summer, actually, and one of the features is that we can ask a survey. So I have made it so that there is a survey that gets sent to every single person that submits a ticket, and they get to fill out the survey at the end. And I dare you to find a restaurant in town with a better service record than this. We have a 5-star rating, as you can see. And that's not just like a few people responding. I mean, we have over 170 respondents, and we have 0, 1, and 2-star ratings, which I think is just really important to show what a great job the tech department is doing. And particularly, this is the technicians, right? This is not really me. This is the people out in buildings, boots on the ground, making sure that our teachers and our students have what they need each and every day. So I was really proud of this and wanted to make sure that you saw it. And then last of all, getting back to what's really important, which is kids in classrooms. We have worked really hard over the last 6 months or so to work with our media specialists at elementary to start implementing elements of what we call maker spaces into the media center classrooms. So these are teachers who are with kids every day, and the idea is kind of bringing some of these bigger picture skills to classrooms. So we talk about how we want kids to collaborate. We want them working on real world problems. We want them iterating on their ideas and doing these in-depth problems. And this is a space where we're really able to build that directly into the curriculum and to support it. And so this is a picture from Lincoln. We put in 3 of these, what we call video editing stations. So there's a table with chairs around it, and kids have actually pulled up more chairs to that table. We put a video screen up, and then we made it so that, and this is not really common in the district right now, but we made it so that the kids could specifically connect to that screen. And we wanted that to be a space where kids would go and they could put their screen up to the bigger screen and say, hey, how do we edit this video best? How do we go through this storyboard and make sure, and that way they can collaborate all together working on various projects, really. So that's a picture from Lincoln. This is a project out of Jefferson where students were working together to just try to build the biggest tower that they possibly could out of what's called Kiva planks. Now, Kiva planks are a very simple toy. They're just wood blocks, as you can see. But the idea is, again, let's build in some of these bigger picture skills. Let's iterate on an idea. Hey, I think we should build our tower this way. Okay, let's give it a try. Oh, you know what? It fell down after it only got to be 2 feet tall. Let's see what else we could do. Let's try to make a better idea. Right, and go through this iterative process. And you can see on the left, we've got a student doing just single planks, and on the right, they've started to add more structure to be able to really make it more sturdy. And so these kinds of projects let kids really dive in. You can see they're collaborating, working with their hands, and really trying to build some of those bigger picture skills. Last of all, this is a video out of Roosevelt where students were working on stop motion videos. And I'm just going to play this first to let you see what it looks like. Nope. I'm going to, there we go. Oh, you know what? This is the PDF, isn't it? So I might have NASCO pull up the Google slide if he can, which will have the video embedded in it, and I'll talk about it just for a bit. So what that is this is going to be stop motion animation. So what you do is you take a picture for every frame of a video, right? So you've seen animation is kind of the old school term for this, right? So you end up, this is a 20-second video, well, they're taking 4 pictures per second. So they're ended up taking about 80 pictures to make this video. And every picture, they're taking the picture, then just moving things ever so slightly in order to make a story, to tell a story of some sort. And this is a really creative endeavor. It's something that we're really wanting kids to get their juices flowing and let their creativity flow. And again, look at this sustained project idea. I think you can imagine how long it might take a 5th grader to take 80 pictures where they're moving one little thing at a time, right? So hopefully we're going to be able to show that video. There we go. Try hitting refresh real quick. Well, this is the way technology goes, folks. I think I should be able to just beam in myself, and I'll do that without it being on my email first. I want to show you this video and give you a chance. You know what? I give you a chance to ask some questions while I'm working on this.
Board members, any questions for Mr. Rutherford? Yes, Mr. Olson.
Yes, on all that cabling, how did that come about?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Who did the work? Was it your staff, or was it outside vendors, or?
So it was a decision made years ago, and we're talking 10 to 15 years ago, where they left all of that cabling kind of looped like that in order to give some flexibility. So at the time, the idea was, if you want your desk over there, you can kind of pull the cable over there. If you want it over there, you can pull it over there. Well, now we have wireless projection, which is what I'm trying to potentially get going at the same time as talking, which is really easy to do, right? When we do that kind of work, they just made that decision at the time to try to make it flexible in that way. It also probably was a cost thing. It's a lot cheaper to just leave it, coiled that way. I'm hoping that we can go and just get it done right this time. That's kind of the goal. I should have this now, I think. Boink. So I think I should be screen mirroring to Falcon A computer NASCO, if you can pull that up. Yay, okay, great. There's no sound. So neat example of student creativity. What other questions do you have?
Board members, any questions or comments for Mr. Rutherford? Mr. Rutherford, first of all, thank you for your leadership of this department. Congratulations on I'm going back to the first page or whatever, $325,000 grant, if you will, funding. Phenomenal job. And to you and your team, and to Mr. Gerdes, whoever came up with the flip-flopping of projects, obviously wonderful. And then just a hats off, I will fully agree with you, to have 169 responses. Maybe it's actually 174 responses, but 169 responses at a 5-star rating is off the charts. So I don't know if everybody gets a Caribou coupon for a 5-star rating or what the heck's going on there, but really just phenomenal job. Really, really great. And I think that hats off to obviously having the right people work on your team, and the responses and the quality work they're doing is fantastic. So kudos to you and to everybody on your team.
Thanks much.
Anybody, anything else? Okay, thank you. We appreciate it. That was item 5D. So that was item 5E. So our next item is 5F, school climate data. Miss Janet Lewis-Muth and Miss Katie Schultz.
Yep. So
You're flying solo tonight.
I am flying solo. Katie went home a little bit sick, and it's better to have her home than sharing her germs with us, right? So I've got a presentation that I think is going to get pulled up. While it's being pulled up, I'll just share with you, this was a data collection effort in the district to give us some baseline data to understand where we're at relative to school climate and culture. Really, we based it on the 5 school board strategies that you all have identified for us and given us as a sort of direction to be moving. So the questions are really focused on the 4 that are in the outer ring. So things around school climate and culture, equity, family and community engagement, and mental health and safety. The questions were all pulled from the U.S. Department of Education question bank. So we didn't make up the questions ourselves. We just utilized questions that the U.S. Department of Education recommended. Let me just spend a little bit of time telling you who took the survey. So this was done in the month of October. We had an overall student response rate of 57%, really just 3rd through 12th grade. Kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd graders can't really understand some of the concepts to make their responses effective. And you can see by school where the responses came from. But the 3rd through 5th graders who responded at the elementary level was a really high response rate at 86%. And then we also surveyed families, so we had 441 total families. If you try to add up the numbers in parentheses behind the schools, it won't work because families were able to check more than one school. They only had to fill the survey out once, even if they have students in multiple buildings. So the 441 students actually represent about 1,000, 441 families represent about 1,000 students. And then 300 staff took it as well. And again, there are a few staff who work in multiple buildings, and they were able to indicate that, so those numbers won't add up, so you know. So when we were talking about school climate and culture, these are the goals that we have related to school climate and culture. We want students and staff to feel safe and welcome, students and staff to have strong positive relationships, and to see high levels of participation and engagement with students and staff. And so those were the questions we chose, were reflected on that. And then we also put a few questions in that cover some of the playbook elements that I know Mr. Venti has been talking a lot about with you all. The colors aren't showing up super well on the slides, but you all can see them you can pull those up in your packets. The green, which is to the left of the line, indicates agree and strongly agree, and then to the right, the red and pink are disagree and strongly disagree. So you can just look at that vertical line, look to the left is positive and to the right is not so positive. So those are some of the elements related to our playbook. I think the one that is important just to notice here is the bottom one. When staff were asked, my school inspires me to do my best, 93% agree with that statement. So I think that's really exciting. So when we look at student responses around school climate and culture, there's a lot on each of these slides, and I'm going to go quickly because this is a long meeting for you all, and you have access to the information in your packets. But I think what's important to note here is that we didn't quite hit the 80% mark. 80% was sort of the barometer that I set for if we've hit 80% or higher, we're doing pretty well. And we did not hit the 80% mark of agreement with I feel like I'm part of the school, and I attend a lot of school events, which is a metric of participation. So those are some things for us to keep in mind. In terms of families, in general, they've got pretty positive responses to the school climate and culture. The one where it wasn't great was that when their children do something good, they usually hear about it from the school. And we were able to collect a few quotes from families. That was the only group that we asked an open text box and gave them the chance. And so this is just an important quote, I think, from a family, that they want to hear more from teachers about when their students are doing well. Right. And then staff also had relatively positive things to say about school climate. I think the one that's important is staff also said that they would like to see more recognition when they're doing a good job. So we all like to hear when we're doing well, and it sounds like our families and our staff want to hear more of that. And we'll see a measure of students as well in a minute. So in terms of equity, and I'm sure you've heard this from Katie Schultz, Dr. Schultz as well, but the sort of goals around that are thinking about access, representation, opportunities for meaningful participation, and then high expectations of everybody. And so those are the questions. This is the student response, and I think it's important here, while again, the majority of the responses are positive, we didn't make it to the 80% threshold on 4 of the 6 questions related to equity. And so that's just an important thing for us to be thinking about and paying attention to. Again, for families, the one area where families really, we didn't make it to that 80% threshold was this notion of discipline is fair. And so I think that's just another thing for us to be thinking about. The students' discussion around the bathrooms is a good example of that, right? Where it feels like a few students do something and then the repercussions are broad, and that could be an indication of where that's coming from. But there were some really positive comments from families as well, that there's some good positive enforcement things going on, and some unacceptable behaviors have been handled better this year. And then in terms of staff, the staff equity concerns were really related to their sense of representation in decision-making processes. So I think that's another important thing for us to be thinking through. When it comes to mental health and safety, our goals are around students having the skills to flourish, staff feeling capable to support student mental health and well-being and their own, and then families also feeling supported and capable to support their students. And so families feel really positive about the support that they're receiving from teachers and staff in terms of communicating around their students. So that's a pretty positive thing. And again, there's some nice positive quotes. But I also think it's important to point out, and I chose to place green arrows to highlight the positive things on this slide, but again, 4 of the 6 measures, we didn't make it to the 80% mark, and this is on student responses. So this is where, looking carefully, the positive behavior is rewarded and teachers praise me when I work hard. That those are 2 of the points where we didn't make it to that 80% mark, and that goes back to the same comment about families want to hear more good news, teachers want to hear more good news, students want to hear good news as well. But the other one that I think is really important to highlight here is that middle one, students treat each other with respect. We've got about half the student population disagrees with that. And that's an indication that students aren't necessarily behaving well with each other or communicating well with each other. And so I think that's a really important concern for us to pay attention to. And then I'll just link it to this. When we look at our staff measures, in the bottom one, we prioritize helping students with their social, emotional, and behavioral problems. There's a lot of staff agreement with that, but then if you back it up and you look at students don't feel like they are treating each other with respect. And so we might have a little bit of a disconnect between how much is being taught around students being able to respect each other and how much it's actually showing up in their behavior then. Okay. And then last but certainly not least, family and community engagement. This is where we want to make sure our families feel safe and welcome at school, and you already heard from Mr. Peck and Mrs. Berry earlier that they received building level data, and that's where those 95, 96% markers from families came from. But we also want our staff to be developing strong relationships with families, and that family and community input and voice are sought, and that family and community members feel well informed by the district. That's another measure that you all have seen before at the board. Our families actually have really positive things to say. So at the district level, we weren't quite at that 95, 96%, the way Roosevelt was, but we certainly made it above the 80% mark on all of ours, so that was good. The one thing I just want to back up for a second. The staff care what families think was our lowest. We made it above the 80% mark, but it wasn't stellar. And I think this is a really important quote for us to have, that there are some parents who feel like teachers don't necessarily believe that parents care, but parents do. Families do care about education. And our staff acknowledge that we do need to be communicating more with parents. So just sort of summarizing all of the information that's incorporated in this, and there's a lot more to it. I just skimmed through it quickly, but everybody, students, staff, parents, everybody would like to learn when good things are happening more. Feeling cared about was a positive thing, a positive theme across all three groups. But students expressed the most concern regarding student respect for each other, and staff and student relationships could be improved, as was evidenced on that students' perceptions of the mental health related slide. So, if there are any questions, I will take those now.
Mr. Olson.
Do we have any data on conferences? How many parents attend student conferences?
I do not have that data this evening. I think each building collects information at their building level. I know at the elementary school it's quite high, but and then it tends to drop off at middle and high school. But I do not have specific numbers, no.
Okay, could we get that to the board?
We can look, I can see if buildings collect it, then I can
okay.
get it reported.
And then, along with it, the parents that maybe have more of a private discussion with parents about student achievement, instead of going to a big room or a gym or something. Do we have any data on that?
Not to my knowledge, no. I do know, I will say that there was one comment from a family in the survey that they would prefer to have like a town hall style meeting or a small conversation around the issues that were covered in the survey, as opposed to filling out a survey. That was one parent response. So I think there is desire for families to have a venue for talking about the issues that were covered in the survey.
We talked about it, but no one shows up. You know, for many years, just issues, and we have it, and if it wasn't for some staff showing up, there would be nobody in the audience.
Board members, other questions or comments?
I think it's very enlightening to see how positive the results are from the staff and the parents and the students overall.
Yeah. And we plan to do this again as an annual thing so that we can see where there's growth. And we'll be checking back with students and staff at the end of the year so that buildings that have set goals related to some of these things will be able to measure if they've made progress on those goals throughout the year.
Wonderful, thank you. Two questions for you, and then one for Mr. Benty as well. The students, where you put the two green arrows, slide 22, you don't have to go back to it, but are you able to dissect which school, building, you can really break it down on a granular level, if you will?
Yep.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
So certainly some are going to be, they're probably not all the same, right?
Correct.
What we're seeing is a generalized average.
Correct.
Okay, so then my next question to both of you as leadership is, okay, now what do we do with this? Right? I mean, this is all great information, but I hate to tell you, it's worthless if we don't do something with it. And so what do we do about it? And maybe this is brand new, so I don't need specifics, but what's the plan to use this information to get better?
So I can tell you just in terms of how it's been shared. Thus far, there's been a report created that covered all of the information by school building from their students, their staff, and their families that was shared with each of the buildings. And so each building has their building-specific information. And I've had a couple of meetings with buildings that have used it to then set their site goals. So several buildings are using this as their sort of baseline to then establish what their site goals will be. Also have presented this to cabinet and then to the district leadership advisory council as well. So it's the start of the conversation to exactly get to your point of, so what's next? And I'll let Mr. Benty answer that.
Yeah, so this fits right along with one of the pieces that I came in with when I started in July, is that we're going to make decisions based off of data. We are really good at collecting data in this district. We are really good at storing data in this district. We are not so great at actually using it to make decisions. So one thing I will say is that Janet can go in very in-depth and very detailed into what each building looks like. And her and I actually sat down for a couple hours one day and just went through, let's dig deeper into this. And I had a few questions, and she was able to go back into the data and find more answers for me. So if you are looking for data around a specific building or a specific question, just let us know. Her and I can easily sit down with you and help walk you through it. I have already used this data working with the principals around, hey, I see this is where your building is doing really well. One of the things that is not in this report, not in depth in this report, is that it says in there that students do not see themselves in our curriculum. It says that in every school across the district, except for one. In the middle school, kids overwhelmingly see themselves in our curriculum. So that's one of the areas that we wanted to look at and say, what's the middle school doing differently? Or if they're not doing anything differently, then why do the students feel differently about the curriculum at the middle school than they do every other building in the district? So we're already able to have those conversations from principal to principal across the lines to say, what are you doing that's different? And we've already been using this in our CNA work that we've been working on for the last couple weeks, that Tracy has been running, and it's been opening up the eyes of principals to say, oh, I didn't know you did that. How's that working? Let me learn from you. So we are deeply using this work so far.
Yeah, wonderful, thank you. And I don't need to see specifics, but it just would be very low-hanging fruit to me, and I'm just going to pick on or compliment Mr. Peck because he's the principal here, but if Roosevelt's family and student scores were 90% and we had a different elementary school at 65%, I think it'd be pretty easy to ask Mr. Peck, Mr. Peck, why is it, what are you doing? Maybe it's the video where every kid gets hugged or, 3 positive greetings in the morning before they ever get into their classroom that makes a ginormous difference, So anyway, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just glad that we're doing something with the data. So, anybody else? Any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I do. So maybe a question for Mr. Benty and Janet here. So when you say you've shared it with the buildings and maybe it's too early, but at what depth? Have you shared it with administration and site leadership teams, like site councils, or has it gone all the way into, maybe that's per building, but has it been shared with classroom teachers, paras, custodians, all this for the total school climate? I don't know.
So I shared it with each of the building principals and left the decision up to the principals to determine when, how, and with whom to share it. I know at a couple of buildings I've then been involved in discussions with a team of sorts, and the team has been different depending on the building. And I know that then the building is deciding how to share it out. So for example, it's been, like the slideshow that I shared has been in a couple of the building newsletters, meaning that it's available to all the staff who access the newsletter. So it depends, each building is doing it differently.
And I would echo that. I know that all principals have it. Most of them have taken it to their site leadership teams within their building, and I know that it has made its way into some staff meetings as well. So,
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Wonderful job. That brings us to item number 6, school board public comment. Ms. Averill, do we have any public comments? No, we don't. So we will move on from item 6. It brings us to item 7, the consent agenda. I want to highlight one thing, and I want to pull one thing out here, or that I would ask that we pull out, and it's in item 7C, additional assignments and other. And it's actually my approval, my contract approval, if you will, for me to coach JV boys basketball. And I would prefer to not vote on that. I will abstain from that, so I would ask that that be pulled out. So with that said, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus my boys basketball coaching contract.
Also move.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bellingham, a second by Mr. Olson. Any further discussion?
There's no discussion on.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. There is no discussion. Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. So now that will take, we'll add this as a amended item, if you will, here to the, I guess it'll, I don't know where the heck it falls. Anyway, we're going to put it consent agenda. I don't know. It's not really consent agenda, but we'll put it under other matters. Thank you. So we will move that to item 11C. Thank you, Ms. Zavrel. Okay, that brings us to item 8, retirement. Consider approval of retirement of Mr. Dennis Drentlaw, 16 years of service. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Lechtenberg, a second by Mr. Bellingham. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may, so I'd like to thank Mr. Drentlaw for, 16 years? I've known Denny for a long, long time. Quality individual, did great work within the district, and just thank him for his efforts and contribution to the district.
Thank you, Mr. Bellingham. Any other discussion? I would like to piggyback on Mr. Bellingham's comments, and Mr. Drentlaw, we thank you immensely and wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors. So we do have a motion and we do have a second. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. That brings us to item 9, the finance reports. Mr. Gerdes, you want to come on up, please? 9A is simply the minutes from our October 17th meeting, and that's all there. So unless you have any questions for Mr. Gerdes or any other finance committee members, we will move on to item 9B, which is the budget and the enrollment and the financial reports. Mr. Gerdes, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, so we'll start out with the first budget presentation of the evening. So what you have in section 9B is a copy of our form that we use for fund balance projections. So I want to review this and just kind of clarify a little bit about what the auditor shared last month at the board meeting and break it down for you a little bit further than what he actually did, just so we're all crystal clear on fund balances and so on and so forth. So last month, the auditor mentioned that total general fund had an increase of $102,231, and that is accurate. And you will see that number on the bottom of right-hand corner of page 1.
Mr. Gerdes, sorry to interrupt you. What number are you on? Are you on the student?
No,
Counts?
it should be the budget one.
So you're on, do you want to go over the student counts first?
Form that looks like this.
I think is that after the student, is that after the enrollment report?
I don't know, on mine it says budget, so we
What
can
are
do whatever
you
you
showing?
want.
I'm showing,
Enrollment.
I'm showing 9B1 as the enrollment report.
Okay,
Will you start with
I'm
that
on
one?
B, but, okay, we'll
Yep.
talk about student enrollment.
Thank you.
So, again, copy of the adjustments for student enrollment as of 10/31. If you look at the top, we are looking to have a total number of kids over budget of 116. So that's good news. Everybody smile. Okay, good. And then the thing that I want to remind everybody of is that this year we are doing PSEO contracted with South Central College. And so that automatically gives us an increase based on that contract that we have with South Central College. I estimated that when this report was done to be 40. End of last week, I actually got the exact number, which was 43 and change, so pretty close. So the actual amount is about 73 kids over budget if you account for the PSU contract with South Central College. So again, still a bit of good news. It's only October. Things are constantly changing and constantly moving, but we are starting off the year with positive data in that area. Any questions on that? Okay. So Chad, what do you have next on your agenda?
Financial reports, I believe.
Okay.
Yes, so.
So, you guys have a report that looks like this.
We can't see it very well, but is that the budget fund balance overview?
Yes.
Actuals, yes.
Yes, okay, so let's talk about that. So this is a clarification and really more clarifying what the auditor mentioned last month at the board meeting, and breaking down Fund 1 fund balances based on unassigned and non-spendable and assigned fund balances, as well as restricted. So while the general fund in total went up by $102,231, the unassigned fund balance, so the money that's free and clear, actually went down by $96,491. And you'll see that number in the upper right-hand corner of that document. Our budget was at $338,000 in the hole, so this is an increase of about $240,000 roughly to the good from where we anticipated our budget to be to where it actually ended up. Okay, so $240,000 on about a $60 million budget is about 0.03% or something, so it's pretty close. If you look at the restricted buckets of money, that's where we gained in fund balance, right, of about $323,000, most of that being in the LTFM fund balance. And then we had a decrease in the assigned fund balance while we used the money that was in there to build the sign at Bruce Smith Field. And so that money was actually expended and therefore came out of that fund balance. The net of all that lumped together is $102,231 to the good. Okay? On the second sheet behind it, it just lists the fund balances for funds 2, 4, 6, 7, 20, and 45. There is nothing in there that is any different than what the auditor presented to you guys last month. Any questions on the fund balance overview sheet for fiscal year 22? I promise this will be the last time I mention this in any report, and we will move completely into fiscal year 23 and 24. Any questions on that? All right, then we'll look at the comparative financial reports. Again, utilities, we have some data there that we didn't have at the time this report went live, so you will see some holes in that data, but again, nothing there that's terribly out of the norm. I would mention that it looks like now we might end up with some numbers in that snow removal line, unfortunately, so be prepared for that when November comparatives roll around next month. If you look down at the bottom on our self-insurance account, for those of you who remember how we ended up last year, it was about $362,000 to the good, adding to that fund balance. And you can see on this report that we are $162,800 and some odd dollars to the positive here at the end of October. So again, moving in the right direction. For those of us that sit on that insurance committee, it looks like maybe that's just Chad in this group. John, sorry.
Yeah.
You heard some positive news from our third-party administrator on that as well. So, any questions on that document? Okay, we'll move on to the investment report. As I mentioned last month, that I told you this investment report would be going up, comparing cash balances from September to October, and that did happen, not as much as I would have liked, but it's up about $700,000 month over month. So again, moving in the right direction. Any questions on that? We do continue to invest, but we are still investing on a short-term basis. I know that came up in a committee meeting the other day, as we don't think the feds have topped the rates out yet, so we're waiting to do anything more long-term until that has happened. I did see, just as a FYI, some rates on 270-day CDs that broke the 5% mark. So, big change from, 4, 5, 6 months ago, whatever it was. So, any questions on the investment report?
Of course, we're not investing in cryptocurrencies, right?
No, sorry, we can't legally do that, so.
Okay.
No,
Because I guess some of the losses are with some school districts or some pensions, teachers' pensions invested. They
Yeah.
lost everything, so I'm just a question that.
Yeah, no.
I know it was literally just a question.
So just, you bring up a good question though, Mr. Olson, for just clarification to the board. When it comes to investing, it is a requirement, state statute, that schools have to invest money in vehicles that are secured. Obviously, cryptocurrency is not secured by anybody, right? So that's why we invest in mutual funds that are secured by banks, or most likely now, or most structured now are CDs that we're investing in because they're short-term, and they're all covered by FDIC insurance. So, and the last report, so Chris and I were able to update our Forecast 5 model, which is our analytical tool, and there's just some reports in there. I'm not going to go into a lot, other than on page 1. I want you to just, if you look at the chart here, it's a little bit more colorful than in years past. That was not me, so I haven't figured out how to quite get those colors off that chart. But what we have there is the dotted red line is last year, and you can see how our fund balances dropped throughout the year last year as we were trying to get all the ESSER money teed up and everything. And you can see where the blue lines are today, and the projections going forward is that they're a whole lot higher in our fund balances. Subsequently, our cash flows will be much better as well. The only other thing I want to mention on this report, as it relates to our irrevocable trust on page 4 of this document, the stock markets continue to not treat us so well, and so we do still show losses in our irrevocable trust. You'll see that when you have $133,000 of negative revenue. Okay, that's usually not a good thing. So hopefully, again, that'll be turning around. Otherwise, we're going to be on the same course as we were in 22 around our trust. Any questions on this?
Mr. Gerdes, just to, for anybody watching or anybody in the audience that doesn't have this in front of, all of this information is posted on our website. So all of this information that Mr. Gerdes just covered is out there.
Yes.
Thank you.
A lot of data.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to item 9B3, gifts and donations, resolution 23-22. I will read these and then I will entertain a motion to approve, and then we'll do a roll call. Resolution 23-22, accepting gifts and donations here on November 21st, 2022. Item number 1 here, item A, as shown, the State Bank of Faribault, $234 towards the Book of the Month program in Mrs. Swanson's first grade at Lincoln Elementary. B, Knights of Columbus, $321.90 for special education student needs. Item C, donations for the nest at the Faribault High School. All of these items following this are for the donations for the nest. From the Vote Yes Committee, $1,202.34. Alexis and Morgan West, a box of clothing. Renee Henson, 3 boxes of clothing. Annette Schwartz, a box of clothing. Madison Schuster, a box of clothing. Mike Eiler, a large case of pencils. Finally, a gift store, which is clothing and shoes valued at $790. And then anonymous toothbrushes and floss. With that, I will entertain a motion to accept the gifts and donations as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Olson, a second by Ms. Lechtenberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Bellingham, will you please do a roll call?
John Bellingham, aye. Leanne Lechtenberg,
Aye.
Richard Olson,
Aye.
Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes 4-0.
Thank you for that, and once again, thank you to all those in the community that donated something there. We greatly appreciate it. That brings us to item 9C, items reviewed by the Finance Committee and are suggested for board approval. Item 9C1, consider approval of Jefferson Playground RFP for Phase 2 and Phase 3. Mr. Gerdes, you want to come forward and mention this to us, please? I think some of us have seen this 2 times, so it has passed the facilities and passed the Finance Committee.
So I would like to introduce Eric Weiss. Eric is a project manager with TPL and Associates. So just to give you a little background on this, as some of you again have heard this, about a year ago, Jefferson Elementary wrote a grant for some playground work out in their school property. They were awarded that grant, and so with that award brought Eric, who is a representative from that grant association. And we've been working with him for quite a while now. And so I'm going to let him describe his portion of that project, his phase, and kind of where we're going, and then we'll take questions after that. So here's your clicker.
Thank you. Eric Weiss, Trust for Public Land, or TPL. We're a nonprofit. We're a national nonprofit. I work out of our St. Paul office. And basically, we help to create and improve parks and outdoor spaces around the country. We have work that focuses on land protection. We've actually done a lot of work down here along the Cannon River, helping to create trails. And then my program is focused specifically on creating or improving parks and schoolyards. Our schoolyards program has been around for about 25 years. We've done about 300 schoolyard projects. We launched the schoolyard program here in Minnesota in March of 2020. Not the best timing, but we have some good momentum now. Our schoolyards program really just looks at schoolyards as a great opportunity to improve access to great outdoor spaces. So we help to create schoolyards that are more park-like in settings. We know from data that many of our parks, or many of our schoolyards lack trees, and so while you think of a park as a place that helps to cool our cities in the summer, because of the general lack of trees in schoolyards across the country, they actually contribute to urban heat islands, so we really focus on creating more park-like spaces that people will enjoy. We do that through a community design process. And we do that with the intention of using specific design tools to address different issues that are highlighted by the community. And then we work to make them welcoming to everyone. I think we're really lucky. Jefferson is a really welcoming space. It's used not only during school hours, but on nights, on weekends, and in the summer when school is not in session. We did a ranking, an analysis of all school buildings in the state of Minnesota. There's 2,600 buildings. We looked at school level data and community level data from a health, equity, climate, and park access basis. Where Jefferson landed was 230th as far as highest need out of 2,600 school buildings. So in the top 10% of schools when we look at kind of this index of data. We received funding at Trust for Public Land from LCCMR, the Legislative Citizen Commission on Natural Resources. It's money that comes from when you play the lottery, so there's lottery proceeds that go back into the outdoors and natural resources in our state. We received funding for a pilot project, and we put out a call for all schools in Minnesota. Jefferson applied, and we selected Jefferson as actually our second school site in Minnesota. And since then, we've been partnering with leaders there on helping to really develop what the future of the schoolyard could look like. We go through a multi-step process, as I mentioned, like really doing the process with intention so that we hear from students, parents, teachers about what that schoolyard can look like in the future. We know that Jefferson, it's an aging playground. It's kind of meeting its end of useful life. There's some, water issues. There was a tree that fell down last year that was the talk of the school when that happened. So there's definitely some opportunities to make some improvements here. We worked with the kids at the school to really learn about the site, look at the different issues, and then think about different ways that the site can be improved. So it's a really great project-based learning opportunity. Just in hearing some of the other conversations too earlier, I think the one thing that I think was really great, we worked with the third grade students, and they all brought empathy to the schoolyard. They all were really thinking differently about how the schoolyard could be designed not only for themselves, but their younger siblings, their grandparents, community members. That, I think, to me, was one of the best things that I saw come out of that. So they actually ended that program with a design workshop. You see here some of the ideas that the students brought forth. So we're breaking this project, which is focused kind of on the front playground or the playground on the east side of the school, into 3 distinct projects. The first one took place over this summer, the parking lot and site circulation that really improved pickup and drop off. The second that will move forward this summer is project 2, as you see outlined here in the red. It's kind of the furthest portion of the playground away from the school building and really the least programmed. Then project 3, as additional funding is secured, would really replace that existing playground. Through conversations with students, teachers, parents, this is an initial concept plan that we've developed, and you see here it kind of broken out in these 3 phases. The focus of this project that will move forward in the summer is really kind of on natural resources and the environment and outdoor learning, which is tied to some of the funding that we received. The other improvements would be kind of traditional play. Soccer has been an identified need there, additional landscaping, shade, etc. So we're continuing to refine that concept plan through additional conversations over the next couple of months. We have $150,000 for design and building of this project. That's not a ton of funding. It won't get us everything, but we're excited to see what we can get out of this and then leverage the funding that we have for additional funding. As kind of was discussed before too, with inflation, equipment is just costing a lot more than it has in the past too. So we're going to cross our fingers. So what we're proposing is a design build RFP. It'll help collapse the timeline and help save us more money to put towards capital expenses rather than working separately with a landscape designer. So we're recommending the issuance of an RFP for the vendor to help us build this. They will also help us think through how much project 3 could cost, which will then help us to do additional fundraising. We do have a memorandum of understanding with the school, and we're also recommending just some updates to that MOU that identify an extended timeline. There's some language changes, minor language changes, and then it re-grants the $150,000 to Jefferson and Faribault Public Schools. And then one of our next things, as in addition to kind of refining these plans, is to begin to do some fundraising really in earnest. So now that we'll have some pictures, we'll do some more targeted marketing. One of the things that TPL does at all of our project sites is help to bring in additional money to make projects happen, whether that's additional public money or private money. And so we'll be partnering with the school and you all on finding a way to make as much happen as soon as it can happen. With approval, we'd issue the RFP tomorrow, get that out hopefully before the holidays, and then we'll get proposals in early January where staff and TPL will help review those proposals. and we'll bring them back to you for a recommendation. Then over the spring, we'd continue that engagement and refinement of the plans, and then hopefully begin construction as soon as the students are out of the building in June. And then we hope to have that wrapped up before they come back into school and celebrate some of the improvements in the fall. So that's the end of my slide. Yeah.
So phase 2 is paid for?
We're going to see how much we can get done with 150,000. So what we're asking through the RFP is basically a recommendation based upon the concept plans that we have developed, how much of that can be built out. And we're going to have to see if it can all be built out, kind of the recommendations. And what we've done through the RFP is say, what are additional add-ons? So in an ideal situation in which 150 will fund that entire portion, we're going to ask them, if there are additional components, if the swings can be replaced, or if, XYZ can be installed, we're going to see how far that gets us. And if it, doesn't get us everywhere, we'll just have to kind of figure out where the top priorities are and kind of make cuts from there.
Now, you said
Yeah, absolutely.
that the lottery is paying for part of this? Lottery proceeds?
Yeah, so.
Can they pay for phase 3?
We would have to apply for additional funding in order to do that. We do have some funding that's going to be, fingers crossed, we're going to get secured this spring, but that would go for additional projects around the state.
Other questions? Eric, phase 2, if I'm looking at the concept correctly, is it primarily greenery, trees, things of that nature? Is that right?
Yeah, so the intent is really, with the lottery proceeds, the intent with that money is really on the improvement of the outdoors, natural resources, and outdoor learning. So one thing that we've heard quite a bit from teachers and students is the desire to just go outside for class. And so the creation of an outdoor kind of classroom space. We've also heard that shade is quite a big issue at the site, so additional shade, whether that's through trees or structures. And then, potentially a kind of a welcoming gate, kind of outdoor signage or educational murals, the like. So yeah, the intent is really on kind of the outdoors. But
So who does that RFP really go out to? Does that go out to landscape firms, or does that go out to a general contractor that takes their cut and then hires subcontractors?
So we're going to send it out to really, a mix of landscape designers and construction firms, playground vendors.
Okay.
And they may pull together a team depending on what their needs are.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. We appreciate your time, and this is an action item, so I will entertain a motion to approve the Jefferson Playground RFP for Phase 2 and Phase 3.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Lechtenberg, a second by Mr. Bellingham. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. This brings us to item 9C2, consider approval of FACES proposal. I will entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I'll so move.
We have a motion by Mr. Bellingham. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Lechtenberg. Mr. Benty, would you like to, or anybody else from leadership that you want to have talk to us about this?
Yeah, so I can speak to this one. So what this will gain us is equal access for all of our buildings to have at least one Somali and one Hispanic or Spanish-speaking faces position within their building. So currently, Jefferson Elementary has 2 Somali-speaking faces, and Lincoln does not have any. So what we'd be looking to do is move one of those to Lincoln, and then hire a Spanish-speaking faces position to bring to Jefferson, so that each elementary, I should say each building has one of each.
Any other questions for Mr. Benty on that? Okay, hearing none. We do have a motion by Mr. Billingham, a second by Ms. Lechtenberg. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you for that. This brings us to item 9C3, consider approval of the Minnesota Department of Human Services Prevention Grant. I will entertain a motion to approve this item.
Mr. Chair, also move.
I have a question that I just need to ask first. Is this the position, is this the grant funded position for mental health?
Drugs.
I need to pull it up.
Mr. Pruitt, do you want to come forward and explain what this is, please?
I missed the last meeting, and I looked over the notes, and I realize I'm a lame duck member here, and with so few board members here, I'm afraid that my vote will have a bigger impact than it should. So my question to you is, I'm wondering if you want to wait on this until there are more board members here.
I don't believe we have to wait. You can vote yes or no or abstain. And if it gets tabled for whatever, if it doesn't pass, we can always bring it back next month. Is there a deadline on it where if it did not get approved tonight, we would bring it back next month? Or maybe let's just talk about it, and maybe that.
Yeah, my only question is, I know that we were waiting on some pieces from the state that would be back early. We were hoping early December. We do not have a business meeting. We have a work session in December. We don't have a business meeting. We would have to tack it on to our truth and taxation.
No.
We don't have a work session.
Yeah.
We do have a business meeting.
Yes.
So.
Correct. But we could put it on there. Go ahead, ask your questions.
So my
and we'll get
question
to it.
is, as I looked through the information that was sent, I feel like we're providing services to every student except our white students. And in a district that our goal is to have all students have equitable opportunities, it seems like we're going after a grant that isn't allowing for those opportunities for a whole section of our students. And I just have questions about that.
Sure, I can answer, and then Mr. Benty can chime in. The focus of the request for proposals was for projects benefiting BIPOC individuals, so individuals of color. That was the parameters that was set by the state of Minnesota. And so that is the parameters of the funding. The reality is, in implementing many of the activities, they will look at sort of school climate and community climate as well, which in that regard it would benefit all students. But the parameters of the funding were set by the state and not by us.
Right. And I realize that, and I realize as a district we wouldn't ever want to target one race and not offer them services, but it appears as though this grant is doing just that. And by accepting the grant, aren't we saying that we aren't being equitable to all of our students?
Mr. Benty, would you like to respond to that?
I think the piece that we would be looking at is the money that would come in, the services that would be provided are going to benefit all of our students. They're gonna help benefit all of our students, no matter what their skin color is or what their background is. The specifics around how we spend the money has to be reported to the Department of Education around what the grant specifics are, which is BIPOC individuals. But I think that there's definitely going to be a trickle-out effect of all these services to all students.
Mr. Pruitt, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
And I'll also add that, our minority base makes up almost the majority of our students now. And actually the majority of our students in a lot of our classes, or in a lot of our schools, I should say.
would we ever go after a grant that only targeted whites and with hopes that it will trickle down to our BIPOC community? Would we do the opposite? And I don't think we would. It just seems like the grant is written to exclude a big portion of our students.
Ms. Lechtenberg, I think you asked a great question. That was not asked the other day. The way I looked at it at our last meeting was, to Mr. Bente's point, a little more than half of our student population falls into this. And I believe in a rising tide lifts all boats. So if we can take approximately $1.1 million over the next 3 years, and we don't have that money available in our general fund today, and if we can use the state dollars that we're getting and hopefully provide additional preventative services to these students and families, and also partner with 16, I think it's 15 or 16 local community organizations in that, I think it's a really hard thing to do. I think you ask a very fair question, and I think Mr. Olson asked not the exact question, but similar question or comments, right?
Close.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, right? So, and so that's where I said, and I agree, if it was, it's a hard thing. The state writes it. The state has a very specific need. At the same token, I know that we apply for special funding for EL population, for special education, and that doesn't go to all other students as well, right? It's very directive in who gets those services. And so that's why I supported it then, and I would support it now as well, because I really do believe in a rising tide lifts all boats. And if we don't get these funds, I don't believe we have $1.1 million over the next 3 years to potentially spend on this, coming out of the general fund. I don't know where those funds come from. So to me, it's a plus in that we can provide those preventative services. At the same token, we've sat here and we've had a lady speak to us about some concerns about adolescent issues within the Somali community. We've had several meetings with this lady and a group of people over the last 3 months about it, and so I think this also helps address those things as well, but that's just coming from my chair. Mr. Olson.
I'll state it again. To me, this is discriminatory. We're using it for a certain race, and it just, why not include everybody? I mean, I'll be voting no on this. It's wrong. We're not treating our students the same. But it's been said to what Katie Schultz, that I've had meetings with her that we've got to treat everybody the same. Well, we're not here. We're not. And hopefully this does not pass. I don't want this grant. I don't want it. It's discriminatory. We are favoring our children of color. It should be favoring all our children. So we're putting them into groups. We are, and that's wrong. It's definitely wrong. And these grants should not even be brought up to the board or through the superintendent at all. What kind of image are we? We'll favor the color, but not the white kids.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Any other comments? Okay, so any other questions for Mr. Pruitt or Mr. Bente? All right, hearing none. We do have a motion by Mr. Bellingham. Do we have a second? I will second the motion. Any further discussion?
Roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Bellingham, will you please do a roll call?
John Bellingham, aye. Leon Lichtenberg,
No.
Richard Olson,
No.
Chad Wolf.
Aye, yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion fails 2-2.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Pruitt and Mr. Bente, if there's something else you want to bring forward at the next meeting, you're welcome to, because it didn't pass. It was a stalemate, if you will.
Well, so my understanding is that since the board has declined to accept these funds, that I will need to reach out to the state and decline the grant. Is that the intention of the board?
Well, we have a stalemate at 2-2, so.
That's my intentions, that unless they change it, add white students, we should reject it. That's my opinion only.
I do feel like this should be a vote of a full board instead of 4 of us.
Thank you, Ms. Lechtenberg. Mr. Bellingham, do you have any thoughts?
Since the board has acted on this agenda item, it fails. So obviously, again, you, Mr. Chair, and the superintendent setting the agenda for the next business meeting may put that back on the agenda for when there's possibly a full board here for it to be considered.
Okay, so Mr. Benty will speak and see and go from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
So do you want me to hold on reaching out to the Department of Education at this point?
I think I would at this time, since our next meeting's on December 5th.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes, Mr. Olson.
Didn't the board just vote?
I just
It did not
explained that,
get
Mr.
voted.
Olson.
Yeah, it didn't get voted down. It didn't pass, and it didn't. So it didn't move forward, right? There was no majority.
It's a no vote.
It didn't get approved.
That's correct. The motion failed.
Yep.
So once again, the chair and the superintendent set the agenda for the next meeting. So if they wish to put it back on the agenda for the next meeting, they certainly may.
Okay. That's I believe to be correct. Okay, so that brings us to item 9C4, consider approval of music FTE at Jefferson Elementary School. Do we have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Lechtenberg, a second by Mr. Bellingham. Mr. Benty, would you just briefly talk to us about this? I know you've communicated some stuff to us, and I know there's a memo out there, but would you just touch on this real briefly?
Yes, so it was brought up as of last school year during the budget reductions that the music program was reduced at Jefferson Elementary. The decisions around that were approved by the school board. And then as we started this year, there was some concerns around students having equal access at Jefferson Elementary to music instruction. What we were able to work out, the 3 elementary principals got together, but the best they could do with the reduction was to offer 90 minutes per year of music instruction for students at Jefferson Elementary. So we've heard some presentations here. The board asked me to look into it, and I worked with the principal of Jefferson Elementary, and we've come up with this plan to hire a full-time music teacher for the second semester at Jefferson for this school year.
Mr. Benty, you mentioned their second semester, so depending on what type of budget reductions will have to be made, that we'll start discussing in earnest in January, and probably look to finalize in the March timeframe, something around that area. This here is simply a request for the second semester. We should not approve this with the anticipation that this is being added to our budget for the following school year.
That is correct. The way that I have set this up is so that it will finish out this year with hopefully a music instructor being hired at Jefferson Elementary.
Okay. Other questions or comments, discussion? Mr. Olson?
Okay, I'll be voting yes on this. I think that you should have in fact, you said equal access. We just completed a vote on dealing with drugs where certain groups are favored.
Jermaine.
I wish that we would figure out if we're going to give equal access to everything to our students, or there's certain things that.
Mr. Olson, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is about the Jefferson Music Memo. We can certainly, you can bring up any other topic you want during the school board comments if you want. You're welcome to. I just want to make sure we're focused on the Jefferson music.
I thought I was.
Okay.
And my point is, we should decide if we're going to give equal access to all students. And I agree, a full board. I mean, if not, then the board should vote on it. You know, we're not going to give equal access, or we should.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments regarding the consideration of approval of a music FTE at Jefferson Elementary School? Okay, hearing none. We have a motion by Ms. Lechtenberg, a second by Mr. Bellingham. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. That brings us to item 9C5. Consider approval of fiscal year 23 Healthy Community Initiative, HCI, contract. I will entertain a motion to approve this. Do we have a motion to approve this?
Also move.
Motion by Mr. Bellingham. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Lechtenberg. Mr. Benty, would you like to talk a little bit about this, or have Mr. Pruitt?
Yeah, Mr. Pruitt, if you'd like to come back up, please.
This reflects a continuation of a service contract between the school district and the Healthy Community Initiative to support a series of grants that HCI provides technical support to the district on. So HCI is written into these grants as a partner with the district. So this is a contract to continue what had been in place last year too.
And really no change from last year?
No, it's a little bit less from last year because there's a little bit less work. A little more we're keeping in-house. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none. We have a motion by Mr. Bellingham, a second by Ms. Lechtenberg. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. That brings us to item 9C6. Consider approval of additional early childhood special education teacher. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Lechtenberg, a second by Mr. Bellingham. Mr. Benty or Mr. Singbreck or Mr. Daynard, would one of you like to talk a little bit about this?
I'm going to volunteer one of my early childhood coordinators to speak to this.
Good evening. We are seeing a continued increase in the number of students who are referred for early childhood special education evaluation at the birth to 5 level. Our numbers are rising at about a 15% rate, which is equal with the numbers that we are seeing statewide in the increase of early childhood special education referrals and qualifying students. At this point, our birth to 3 teachers are at caseload, and then we are seeing an increase in the number of students with significant needs that are requiring more of a small group special education classroom. We had added classrooms as of last spring to increase the number of classrooms of small group settings to 6, and we are currently 6 students away from having those classrooms filled already, and it's only the end of November.
Thank you for that. Any questions, comments? Mr. Olson?
So you're using the new addition at Roosevelt and McKinley, right?
Yes, yes.
And they're pretty much full.
And we have reached capacity. And we continue to have 2 classrooms over at Jefferson as well.
What are you going to do with overflow?
In special education, there is no saying no. And so we continue to find ways to adapt and modify our programming. We have very great partners with our early childhood community programming where they are willing to look at maximum capacity in our general education classrooms to allow inclusive settings for our kids. And this additional position would allow us to create an additional classroom for kids with more significant needs.
Do we need more building? I mean, someplace, I mean, I don't want to rent anything, but add it on to the Roosevelt edition. I don't know if it was designed for it, or McKinley. I mean, what's the future and what's?
That's not what we're asking for today.
Oh,
But
okay.
we will be looking at our facilities as we talk about budgets and as we talk about an increase in students at the early childhood and kindergarten level. Currently, we have one classroom left at McKinley that's being unused. So this person would be able to utilize that classroom, but yes, space is tight. Even with we were full, the expansion was full before it was built. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, but that'll be part of the budget with Mr. Benty, right? You'll be bringing that to the full
We'll be
board.
talking about different configurations to squeeze out more space in our current buildings, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. We have a motion by Ms. Lechtenberg, a second by Mr. Bellingham. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Brings us to item 10, the Policy Committee. 10A is the Policy Committee minutes from November 1st, 2022. Would anybody like to touch on those minutes and give a little recap?
Well, I guess that's me. Basically, the minutes explain exactly what we went over. For the first reading here, with the report, what policies went over, and mostly statute and recommendations from MSBA changes were examined and made.
Thank you. Just one brief question for either one of you. Policy Committee, do you typically meet on the first Tuesday of the month at 3:30 virtually?
Yes.
Is that typically? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so that was a report. So that brings us to item 10B, consider approval of the following policies. We will take these all in one motion unless somebody has an issue with it. Policy 417, chemical use and abuse. Policy 418, drug-free workplace / drug-free school. And Policy 722, public data and data subject requests. I will entertain a motion to approve all three of those with one motion.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Lechtenberg. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Lechtenberg, a second by Mr. Olson. Any further discussion on this item? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. That brings us to item 10C. The following policies are presented for the first reading. And this is report only, but Policy 209, Code of Ethics. Policy 415, mandated reporting of maltreatment of vulnerable adults. Policy 104, School District Mission Statement. Policy 201, Legal Status of the School Board. Policy 202, School Board Officers. Policy 212, School Board Member Development. And Policy 420, Students and Employees with Sexually Transmitted Infections and Diseases. Are there any questions or comments regarding those 7 policies that I just mentioned?
Mr. Chair, if I may, so on behalf of the Policy Committee, once again, the majority of those, in fact, I would say all of those are statute and MSBA recommendations for changes that we have gone through there. So I would certainly hope that all board members would examine and read in the first reading all of these policies that in the first reading, and when it comes up for a vote here in, well, just a couple weeks in December then.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellingham, and thank you once again, Policy Committee members, for all your time and efforts.
Mr. Chair, if I may also just add, I'm being on the policy committee now 4 years, but I'm very proud. I think Ms. Zavero informed us. Our policies are all now at least the year 2000 or newer. We've all the way from the 70s, and those of us that grew up in the 70s, you know what I'm talking about here, but 70s, 80s, so thank you for that work, Ms. Zavero, and the cabinet and people who go over these. I mean, really, probably most of our policies should be within a 5 to 7 year period, I would assume, and that's difficult, but we've come a long way and gone from over 400 policies and did things that really matter, so.
Mr. Bellingham and Mrs. Everall, I was going to ask you the question, how many policies do we actually have on our books? Do we know that number?
We had 413 or 412 4 years ago. Yeah, I sat and counted them. But I'm on a committee and I do my work on the committee, and that's what we needed to do, and so we need to get rid of some that weren't MSBA recommended, things like that were written, and what applies. And again, that is one of the major jobs of the board, is to set policy in guiding the district. So we need to do so. I would say probably now 300 maybe, or whatever. So yeah, around in there.
Thank you. That brings us to item 11, other matters. In item 11A, consider approval of agreement between ISD 656 and IUOE local number 70 for paraprofessionals. I will entertain a motion to approve.
Also move.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bellingham and a second by Ms. Lechtenberg. Mr. Benty or Mr. Gertis, anything you'd like to add here? I see that Ms. Yoakum is no longer here. So anything you'd like to add, either one of you?
Could Scott come up?
Sure, absolutely. Mr. Gertis, would you please come up, answer a question or two? Make a comment or two? Mr. Olson, do you have a question for him?
Just explain it, that's all. Just.
You'll have to give me a second. I wasn't prepared to do this.
Doing the Jeopardy music.
Almost there. Somebody keep talking while I'm.
I asked Mr. Olson if he was doing the Jeopardy music.
Okay. So was there a specific question, Mr. Olson, that you had? Or?
What is our budget and what do we, percentages?
So let's just talk briefly about the ins and outs of the agreement first. So one of the things that we were trying to do throughout this contract negotiation is really try and simplify this contract. This is by far the most complicated contract that we have across the district, with 7 different classes and then multiple different rates inside all of those classes, and then multiple different add-ons inside of each of those classes, and then there's longevity that's different on each of those classes. So the long and the short of it is we had 7 classes. We dropped and combined those classes down to 5, okay? And you can see those listed there under the rates of pay. So we have classes 1 through 5 instead of 1 through 7. The insurance piece listed in item B is again a 6% increase on insurance up to the contractual cap that is in their contract today, okay? The increase for the hourly wage in year 1, retroed back, of course, to July 1st, is 5.05%. Okay, Mr. Olson, to your question, we had 4% in the budget. Okay. The longevity here is also an increase. The existing longevity, I believe, started out at 25 cents and went up by 5 cents per tier. The tiers did not change, but the longevity did change, starting at 50 cents and going by 25 cents increments on up to 30 years. Above and beyond 30 years is 20 cents per hour per year. Okay, that added another roughly 2.4% to this contract that was not in the budget. The increase in the bilinguals, hourly rate went from $2 to $3.50. I don't have that exact number, but that's not a huge number at all to the budget. Okay, so that all is all summed up in the $256,000 listed on the top there. That's for year one, fiscal year 2023. The year two, again, the only changes to year two was a 4% increase. Obviously, we don't have any budget for fiscal year 24 yet, but that did match the budget for fiscal year 23. Any additional questions that you might have that maybe I didn't cover? And I apologize for my lack of being prepared here.
Oh, it's okay. So the employees are going to go right to the highest step right away?
That is correct.
Why is that to the highest step, not the middle step or something? Why take them to the max right off the bat?
It's really staffing. So either we do that or we don't have people to work with the kids. It's just how it is at the end of the day. So,
Mr. Gertis, can you kind of give us the pay range of what we're talking here on an hourly basis?
So might need to drag Rob up here to help me with this, but the rough starting for the special ed pairs for year one was, I think, $18.60 cents. 30 cents.
$18.30.
$8.30. 4% on top of that for the average special ed para was just over $19. And that's with the 15% bump for tier 3.
15 cent bump for setting 3.
Setting 3, thank you.
And can you tell us, how do we sit today on open and unfilled positions?
We're at 4 currently, 1 at Lincoln Elementary and 3 at the high school. And so we have not been fully staffed for the entire year. We were as high as 8 when we originally talked to the board in closed session, and now we're down to 4 open.
We're making improvements. And can you tell us roughly, if you will, the attrition rate over the last 12 months, if you will? Do you know what I'm saying? And the churn rate. So if we've got 50 paras, I don't know, you picked a number, I don't know what it is, but how many of those have come and gone, if you will?
We've turned over about 30 employees since a year ago, with retirements and people moving on to other things.
The N on yours is about 133 paras total. That's not all special ed paras. Obviously, a large majority of them are special ed paras, but we have kindergarten paras and some students that work in the SAC, staff that work in the SAC, and some other ones as well.
So over the last year, we've had somewhere between approximately 20 to 25%
minimum
churn, if you will. And the two of you believe that's primarily due to competitive pay?
I'm 100% positive of that.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I'm not 100% positive on too much.
Okay. Thank you. Clearly, that's what they are telling you when they're leaving.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions or comments, board members or Mr. Benty?
I would just like to thank the negotiation team.
Nuclear attack.
Sorry, I was waiting for my phone to go then too. So I would just like to thank the negotiation team. They've done a really good job at, trying to pare down a complicated contract, and they've done a really good job of staying within the revised budget that the board set up for the paras. I know this has been an issue that all districts around us have been dealing with is, especially with the paraprofessionals, how do they get them, how do they retain them? And this has been a settlement that has been very standard across many districts.
Thank you, appreciate it. And I would just like to thank the paraprofessionals for all their efforts day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out. Without them, we're in, not a great place, right? I mean, they do a tremendous job. And so anyway, I just want to thank them. And Mr. Benty, to your point as well, thank you to the people that helped negotiate this. So any other questions or comments regarding this? Okay, hearing none, we do have a motion by Mr. Bellingham and a second by Ms. Lechtenberg. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes 3-1. Thank you for that. That brings us to item 11B, consider approval of employment agreement with Ms. Lisa Engbrecht. I will entertain a motion to approve this.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Lechtenberg, a second by Mr. Bellingham. Mr. Benty, would you like to touch on this at all?
I'll let Mr. Daynard come back up again and speak.
So what I decided, one of our employees, our Help Me Grow coordinator, resigned early in this year. So what I decided to do was, instead of hiring a new person to fulfill that role, the Help Me Grow coordinator takes referrals from the state through the Help Me Grow system, and then contacts parents and facilitates the evaluation of the students who are referred to through the Help Me Grow line. We had a dedicated employee who worked part-time with Northfield and part-time with Faribault, so it's half-time here, half-time with Northfield. Northfield recently withdrew from that contract because they wanted to do it in-house. They felt they had enough referrals to do it in-house, which put us in an awkward position of having to pay for a full-time person with half the money, honestly. We figured out a way to pay for it by using some of the ESSER money to carry over to finish out this contract year, but she resigned. And so since she resigned, we felt that there was an opportunity to combine some of the roles that Lisa does together into one position. And so that's what we're trying to do here, is to use the money that had gone to this other employee, combine it with what Lisa is already making to make her into a true administrator for referrals, a case facilitator, facilitates the referrals through the special education process. And early childhood, as you probably heard earlier, has a number of referrals. So,
thank you, Mr. Daynard. Questions? Go ahead, Mr. Olson.
So you're combining two into one.
Correct.
Theoretically.
We had dedicated funds from the federal government for birth to 3 evaluations. So we're using that money that is no longer going to be spent on the Help Me Grow coordinator and combining it with Lisa's salary and the position she already had to make a case facilitator position.
So we're not saving money.
No, but we're not losing money either.
Oh.
Right. And it's money that has to be used specifically for birth to 3 evaluations.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Daynard, is this just for the rest of this year, or would you anticipate
this would be continuing?
Continuing.
Right.
Why do we have this pulled out and not just in the consent agenda? Is it because it's administrative?
I have no idea. I don't make those rules.
No. Okay. I just didn't know if there's something that we have so many different things in the consent agenda with employment and whatnot. So, okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, we do have a motion by Ms. Lechtenberg, a second by Mr. Bellingham. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Ms. Engbrecht, thank you for all your efforts and work. Okay, this brings to item 11C, which is what we had pulled out, or I had asked to be pulled out of the consent agenda, which is looking for approval of my employment for the boys JV basketball coach. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Olson.
No.
Have at it.
No,
I'll save you a seat right behind the bench. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I will abstain, so that passes 3-0. Thank you. That brings us to item 12, other items of information. School board members, the floor is yours. If you'd like to add anything or discuss anything, Mr. Olson.
Mr. Chair, on December 2nd and 3rd, it'd be my 14th year to represent the Faribault School District in the Delegate Assembly. We vote on resolutions. This is the book, and I'll be going here about a week and a half. And of course, I'll get the results and give this book over to Mr. Benty on, actually, it's a pretty full schedule on resolutions. So that's
Do you have a prediction?
prediction. Actually, anything that comes out of Minneapolis is voted down usually. But again, in fact, that a few years ago, that
Long-term funding, LTFM.
right, and that I brought that up through this week passed, and guess what? We got a lot of money. So
It's been a
there
good
is
thing.
it's some work, but again, it's you hobnob there for a couple of days and try to lobby people. So this year I didn't propose anything. So, but I'll get the results back to Mr. Benty, and I'll give him this book on the results, either pass or failed.
Thank you for your time and efforts in the past, and thank you for your time and efforts this year. We
Thank you.
appreciate them. Any other comments, board members, items of discussion?
I do, Mr. Chair, thank you. First of all, I want to thank the student board representatives, the work you do, not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom and with your peers, with administration, just it's making for a much more quality high school experience. So thank you for that. Once again, DECA, we have a program that's second to none in the state, and right up there in the nation. So something to be very, very proud of. And again, presentation by Mr. Peck and Ms. Berry there, just this quality, what we have going on here as well. So one thing I did find out over the weekend, and I hope we will, I know we'll be recognizing this, but one of the things with our 7-period day is expanding our classroom opportunities and things like that. And of course, agriculture, the ag program has been always a real deep in my heart for that. And I have a former student of mine, Madeline Schultz, who's the ag teacher. And we started off, I believe, with 83 or 87 students the first year. And this year, in its third year, we have 450 students registered in an ag-related class. And I found out this year, just last weekend, that Madeline Schultz has been awarded the Minnesota Ag Educator of the Year here in Faribault Public Schools. Thank you. We are doing the right thing. Again, thank you to the community for the 7-period day. It's making a difference for our kids. It's making a difference for our community and making a difference for the district. So thank you for that. And again, congratulations. This is just something, one of the many, many outstanding things that happens in our district here. So congratulations. That's what I had to say.
Thank you. Ms. Lechtenberg, do you have anything? I would just like to comment and just say congratulations to anybody that ran for office and got elected, and just a big thank you to everybody that ran for an office, school board or whatever level. We greatly appreciate it. We need more people to continue to run for elected positions. I would just like to extend thoughts and prayers to Ms. Cassie Steves and Mr. Cleet Herring on the passing of Cassie's mom and Cleet's wife a week or so ago. Our thoughts and prayers are with them. And then I would also just like to mention that I attended the school play on Friday night, and the students in that play did a great job in leadership. And you know, there's all the cast members and there's all the people behind the scenes that include the stage crew and the lighting and all that. And so thank you to all those people, and congratulations. And I hope we can promote that better. I feel like my head must be in the sand because I didn't see that promoted in a whole lot of places. And I would like to see that promoted a lot better if we can possibly in the future, whatever tools we have. So, and that's all I have. So thank you. Mr. Benty.
Yes, I would echo a lot of the comments that are here. Mr. Bellingham, to your point, we have an amazing staff that's doing amazing things, many times with dwindling financial resources, dwindling just resources in general. So our DECA program, our ag program, our wind time program that has started up this year, Mr. Peck being able to come in here and show that our baseline test scores starting out this year are anywhere from 9 to 16% higher than they were starting out last year. This is all data that we hope is trending in the right direction for us. I'm very excited this year to see what our test score data looks like when we get at the end of January, to see if all of the work that we've been doing, John Curry, who was a mentor of mine, said, when you have a problem, do something. Right now, we're doing something, and then we'll find out if it's working. So we're doing a lot of things, actually. So I'm excited about that. That kind of fits in with the theme of Thanksgiving this week, which is my favorite holiday. My wife asked me if we could put up the Christmas decorations early this year, and I said no. So if she's watching, the answer is still no. Friday, we can start doing that. But one other thing is we do also then have to look at the face of reality, and with 2 of our 3 levy questions not passing, we need to discuss budget. And I've started to work with Cabinet. I'll be working with the Leadership Advisory Team, along with our CNA team. And we're going to be putting some pieces together here in December. And we hope to hit the ground running with the new board in January to have a lot of information to you around what's the numbers look like, what proposals do we have, what options does the board have, so that we can start to make some decisions and get that work done by March. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Brings us to item 13, dates to remember, information only here, December 5th, 2022. 5:30 p.m. is our regular business meeting, and December 5th, 2022, same night, at 6 p.m. is our truth in taxation. So for all of you that are liking to come to that meeting, at 6 o'clock we will take a pause in our regular business meeting and move into our truth in taxation meeting. With that, that brings us to item 14, our adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Olson, a second by Ms. Lechtenberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.